The Baltic states are in shock. Washington is quietly turning its back on what were once its most loyal allies. After 20 years of relentless anti-Russian rhetoric, a brutal realization is setting in. They were never partners. They were expendable. So what is really happening? Today, we break down why the United States is prepared to trade Eastern Europe for its own global interests, without hesitation and without remorse. Here is the uncomfortable truth many sensed, but never dared to say out loud. The United States is not abandoning Eastern Europe because it suddenly loves Russia. It is doing so because Washington knows how to calculate cost, risk, and return. And in that calculation, the Baltic states are not assets. They are liabilities. America's priorities have shifted. Resources are now needed elsewhere: the Middle East, Venezuela, and above all, the confrontation with China. Add deep domestic instability, mounting debt, and political exhaustion, and the conclusion becomes obvious. Eastern Europe is no longer worth the price. In simple terms, Europe is no longer a priority, and Eastern Europe even less so. For years, the Baltics behaved like a small guard dog, barking loudly from behind a fence, confident a powerful owner stood ready with a club. That confidence shaped everything. Monuments were torn down. The Russian language was banned. Transit routes were blocked. Anti-Russian marches became routine. NATO platforms were used to amplify fear and hysteria. Why not? They believed the alliance would protect them. America would intervene. Sanctions would follow. They felt untouchable. But the owner has grown tired. And now comes the turning point. Visits by individuals closely linked to Trump to Moscow were not symbolic. They were not about diplomacy. They were about business, imperial-scale business. According to analysts, discussions were held calmly, coldly, and without emotion. Spheres of influence were outlined. Interests were weighed. And notably absent from those discussions, the loudest moral crusaders, the Baltic states. Europe itself has become a bargaining chip. For Washington, the priority is winning where the stakes are highest. Eastern Europe, especially its aggressively anti-Russian wing, is an expensive burden with diminishing returns. This is where the slogans about democracy and values quietly end, and real politics begins. Russia, meanwhile, never rushed. It did not panic. It did not shout. It watched. Transit blocked. Lost revenue. Professionals expelled. Lost expertise. Economies built on hostility. Lost futures. Russia simply took notes. And now the moment has arrived. The Baltic elites missed the shift. They are still living in the early 2000s, believing America is eternal, NATO is unconditional, and sanctions terrify Moscow. But Washington does not operate on emotions. It operates on profit and leverage. When influence is divided, no one asks what Riga or Vilnius thinks. Contrast this with Central Asia. There, elites sense the shift immediately. Yesterday, they smiled at Washington. Today, they smile toward Moscow. Not out of love, but survival. They understand one rule: align with whoever can provide security and economic stability tomorrow. The Baltics could not do that. Admitting the need to normalize relations with Moscow would mean admitting 20 years were built on hysteria and false assumptions. For their elites, that would be political suicide. So instead, they choose ruin with pride. Here is the most damning part. Many Baltic elites are not planning to stay. They are already packing. If things collapse, they will flee west to the US, Canada, London. They will open institutes, collect grants, and repeat the same narratives from a safe distance. They are planning a soft landing, not defending their countries. Russia stays. Russia absorbs risk. Russia takes responsibility. The Baltic elites are temporary tenants of power, already imagining life elsewhere. And the irony? They will be accepted in the West, not as heroes, but as discarded products of a finished Cold War narrative. Final thought. The division of influence between Washington and Moscow is bad news, not for Russia, but for the Baltics and Poland. They invested everything in hostility, built careers on confrontation, ignored strategic flexibility. Now, as global powers redraw the map without them, their entire strategy collapses under its own weight. Those who sow the wind reap the storm. The United States is reshaping its global strategy. Eastern Europe is being pushed to the sidelines of history. Russia is calmly reclaiming influence. And small country elites are panicking and packing their bags. This shift has only begun.